mods. I'm Tori, and I'm here to ask you one question and one question only. Explosions?
Hey everybody, it's Hater, and welcome back to another build video. In this one, we are going to become Michael Bay the Guardian. But as per usual, if you guys use this build and you enjoy the video, go and leave a like, leave a comment on the comment section, any builds you guys want to see me cover in the future. And if you really enjoy the content, go and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified. Also go support me over at my Twitch, it'll be in the description. Without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with a video that Ehroar posted a couple weeks ago talking about Bottom Tree Dawnblade. He made a discovery that Bottom Tree Dawnblade's burn effects were being procced off of melee specific exotics via their grenades. Two of which that he heavily covered were the Fellwinter's Helm and Necrotic Grips. Basically, every time you would throw a grenade and it would cause the chain explosion, Necrotic Grips would also proc spreading poison everywhere on top of the explosions. And then on the other hand, when you're using Fellwinter's Helm, it would lay a suppression field on every explosion at the same time too. I strongly recommend going into the description and actually checking out his video on it because it is phenomenal with how he found this out. But this video just isn't about me covering his build. We're actually going to be breaking this down and further enhancing his build with an exotic that he did not cover. That being the exotic chest piece Starfire Protocol. Basically what it does is that it gives you a second charge of your fusion grenades and it recharges your fusion grenades on empowered weapon damage. Fusion grenades will also give you your rift energy back on kill. And you're probably wondering, why are we using fusion grenades over solar grenades? That's because fusion grenades will actually proc the same explosion effect that solar grenades do also. But here's the kicker. Remember what I said earlier, fusion grenades recharge from empowered weapon damage. Key word there being empowered weapon damage. You actually don't need to get kills with your guns to give yourself grenade energy back. So the way that you would proc this effect is that you would actually lay an empowering rift down and then shoot your enemies while standing in that rift to gain your grenade energy back. If we pair this combo with something like the exotic scout rifle Polaris Lance, we can get our grenade back really fast. Because if you don't know what Polaris Lance does, its main perk, the Perfect Fifth, will give us ammo back to the magazine upon hitting a headshot. Whenever we land 4 headshots, it's going to load a delayed slower explosive round for the next shot, and that solar explosive round also applies a burn to the enemy. Then on top of that, that burn is counted towards Starfire Protocol as long as we are standing in a rift. Now the real question left to ask is, how many shots of Polaris Lance is it going to take to get 1 fusion grenade? And the answer to that is 5. You only need to count 5 hits while in a rift to get 1 fusion grenade back. And remember, the burn from the explosive shot is also going to count towards Starfire Protocol, meaning each time the burn ticks, it's 20% of our grenade energy back, creating this kind of infinite loop of grenades equal rift equals grenades equals rift. As long as you have a empowering rift, you can create fusion grenades to create more empowering rifts. Now that we've pretty much got the bread and butter like on the table, let's actually talk about what we can put inside of this build to help further enhance Polaris Lance and Starfire Protocol together. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but we're going to be using Warmind Cells. Yeah, those little orange balls that on the ground that make things go boom that got nerfed really hard. We're going to be using those. Why? Because even though they got nerfed, there are still a few Warmind Cell mods that help synergize with this build. The most important one being burning cells. Every time we destroy a Warmind Cell, it's going to create a solar burn that is applied to every enemy in the radius of the Warmind Cell. And if you couldn't guess, that burn is going to be able to proc the Bottom Tree Dawnblade explosion effect, making our build even more lethal. We combine that with mods like Wrath of Rasputin, where Solar Splash Final Blows have a chance to create Warmind Cells. We can pretty much infinitely create Warmind Cells as long as we are blowing enemies up with solar explosions, i.e. Polaris Lance, fusion grenades, our melee, our super. You get the point. We have a lot of things in this kit that make things go boom. And then for the icing on top, we add Global Reach, which adds an extra 10 meters to our Warmind Cell's detonation range. Hence why this makes you Michael Bay the Guardian. Moving on to the rest of the mods, We're going to take advantage of all these explosive melee kills technically with the mod Thermoclastic Blooming, where every time we get a kill with a solar or stasis empowered melee, it's going to create an orb of light. And that's going to count for every single explosion happening. And to be frank, Error and I both don't really know if that's intended or not, but we're going to use it anyways until it's either intended or not intended. I don't know. All I do know is boom, make orb, I pick up orb. Then to synergize with that, we're going to be using Innervation, where every time we pick up an orb of light, it's going to give us grenade energy back. Then we combo that with hands-on from the artifact, where every time we get a kill with our melee abilities, i.e. the explosions, for some reason, we're going to gain super energy per explosion. Then use the mod Bomber, where every time we use our class ability, it's going to give us grenade energy back. Finally, we're going to use some elemental well mods to finish everything off, such as Explosive Well Maker, where every time we get solar splash kills, it has a chance to create a solar elemental well. We use that with Well of Ordnance, where every time we pick up a solar elemental well, it's going to give us grenade energy back, feeding more into the grenade themed build. But what about the rest of the loadout, you might ask? Because if you've noticed, we can't really stun champions in the slightest with this build. So what we would do instead of running Polaris Lance, we would run something like Ticuu's Divination to cover Overload. And trust me, Ticuu's is just as good, if not on par, with Polaris Lance in this build. Because what Ticuu's Divination does is that whenever you are hip firing the bow, it's going to mark 3 targets with tracking arrows, and when you ADS and fire at those enemies that are marked, it causes them to explode. Then, if you have the catalyst for Ticuu's Divination, it also gains a new perk for it, allowing you to increase arrow damage on perfectly drawn shots towards targets that are marked with Sacred Flame, giving you a stack up to 5 times of casualty arrows. On top of this, this has a really fun interaction with Bottom Tree Dawnblade, where we can mark enemies with Sacred Flame, throw our fusion grenades at them, and it would cause them to explode twice at once, creating even more AoE damage than we already had. Moving on to the kinetic slot, there's actually something you can run in this spot to really help with this build. That is going to be an ignition code with Demolitionist and blinding grenades, basically allowing you to blind all the enemies, hit them with Ticuu's or Polaris Lance, and build up your grenade energy. Then for the heavy slot, this part is pretty much up to you, but we can take advantage of the mod Particle Deconstruction, where every time we hit an enemy with a linear fusion rifle or a fusion rifle, it's going to stack a debuff that gives you more damage to those weapon types on them, allowing us to hit over 100,000 damage on a linear fusion rifle shot, which is absurd. But on the other hand, we can use something a little bit more fun, because recently the Ascendancy rocket launcher received a buff on explosive light, allowing you to do 25% more damage per rocket as long as you have stacks of explosive light. You could then also use the mod Font of Might, where picking up a well gives you a damage bonus based on your subclass. Since we're using solar, it's going to be a solar damage buff for 10 seconds. That is going to stack on top of explosive light, making it do 50% more damage per rocket for 10 seconds, as long as you have stacks of explosive light. You can also stack weapons of light from Bubble, Well of Radiance, and Focusing Lens to hit some pretty ridiculous numbers with this thing. Error broke down this rocket launcher with this buff in one of his videos too, much better than I can in like 2 minutes, so that'll also be in the description if you're interested. But I believe that is going to wrap up the video for today. Overall, you got a series of exotics that are going to be able to maintain your grenade energy, your super energy, and your overall damage output for even against champions. You can take this into Grandmasters, raids, etc. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.